Yeah, so if you're watching, unfortunately, you've probably lost a child. And, you know, it doesn't matter whether they're 2, 5, 15, 25, or 35. When you lose a child, it's all the same. It's just a really, really bad thing. And I've actually lost two sons. And my name is Paul Gilson, and I'm from upstate New York in the Rochester, New York area. And so I've gotten some healing, and I think it's time that uh, I I make this video for maybe those of you who are a few steps behind me in the process. I didn't lose just one son. I lost two sons. On the night of May 2nd, 2017, I received a phone call from my first wife, who was virtually unable to speak. And in my heart, I knew something very bad had happened. And I just said to her, which one of my sons are dead? And she was able to eke out, David. And I said, what happened? And she tried to get it out, and finally she said he hung himself. So basically what happened to my oldest son, David, is he was into drugs and alcohol and some other things, and hung himself in his garage at the age of 31 years old. That, for me, was a gut punch. I had a friend over that evening, and he's like, oh man, I'm going to go home. I says, no, I need you right here, man, with me. And so I had to make the phone call to his grandmother. I never heard anyone let out such a cry, saying no. But it was true. My oldest boy had hung himself, and the week before he had texted me, and he was all proud. He had gotten a promotion at work and was texting me about it, and I said, well, the Lord is blessing you because you're following the Lord. You're taking your family to church and doing this and doing that. I don't know what state of mind he was in when he hung himself in his garage. I don't know if he was drunk or high or whatever. But that was the end result. That was a horrible, horrible experience for me. And if you're watching and you've lost a child, you know what it's like. It's like being hit by a bus. Boom. And all of a sudden you feel nothing, but at the same time you feel everything. All the sadness, the whole bit. And so we had the funeral, we had him cremated, we had a showing, and I've raised 6 sons and 4 daughters. And I had to look at my son, my beautiful boy, blonde hair and blue eyes, laying in a paper casket, a cardboard casket, because he was going to be cremated. And I had to listen to my daughters whimper. All I heard was from all my daughters. And I had to stay strong. When it came time for his funeral, right afterwards, after the private viewing, I asked if I could have a lock of his hair. I said, I have a lock of his hair from his first haircut, and I would like a lock of his hair from his last one, before you cremate him. And they did that for me, and I was out pacing in the parking lot of the funeral home. They wanted to know, the pastor wanted to know if anybody wanted to speak, and I just didn't know if I could. But I found the strength to speak at his funeral, which I did. I'm very glad that I did that. And then there was many tears for many, many, many months. And I'm a Christian, not a perfect Christian, but I am a Christian. I believe in the Lord above, and that He sent His only Son to die on the cross to redeem our sins. And I thought, I never blamed God, because God did not take my son. My son took my son. God did not hang him. He hung himself. So God did not take my son, but God welcomed him into heaven. He was a believer that got sidetracked on drugs and alcohol, and God welcomed him into heaven. And I know that. I lived with that for months on end, and would sometimes wonder where my son was, as though he were off on a trip somewhere, wondering how he was doing, if he was okay. I cried myself to sleep every night. There were days that I couldn't show up for work because my eyes were so swollen shut. And I had to somehow get through that. And I asked God to help me. And just as God was helping me to get through the death of my son, I lost another son. On February 22nd, 2021, my second oldest son died of a heroin fentanyl overdose. It was just after my 9:30 break on a Monday. And my phone was on vibrate, and it was blowing up. It was like non-stop vibrating in my pocket. And I knew something was very bad. And I looked at the text messages and the communication, and my family contacted me and said that my son Michael was found at 9 a.m. in the morning, unresponsive, with no breathing and no heartbeat. But he was still alive somehow. And my daughter-in-law asked me, "Do you want to come over?" And I was like, "Well, how long have the paramedics been working on him?" She says, "A half hour. Why don't you come over?" Like it was a party or something. I don't know. It was kind of weird. And I said, "He's gone." Paramedics don't work on somebody without reviving them for a half hour unless they're gone. And 10 minutes later, I got a text, and it said, "He's gone. Michael's gone." My second boy, a beautiful boy, 30 years old. Heroin fentanyl overdose. When I got that text, my body shook uncontrollably, as though it was me that was dying. I went to my plant manager where I worked. I told him my son had just died. I need to leave immediately. He asked me if I could drive, and I said, "I'll make it." I don't remember driving home. Here again, I had to go through it all over again. And I asked for a lock of his hair before they cremated him. And I asked, "Lord, where is my son?" And I didn't hear anything back for a long time. And one day, I came home, and I wanted to know where both my sons were. In the meantime, my father had passed away. And my brother did too. That's 3 generations of Gilson men that passed away. So for me, it was like being hit by a bus moving at 80 miles an hour with my first son. And then I really had to rely on the Lord to get me through that. And I asked where he was, and I asked where he was, and I asked the Lord to show me where he was. And then just as I was recouping from this, the second son dies from a heroin fentanyl overdose. It's like just getting out of the hospital after 4 years of being in traction. And then all of a sudden, you're hit by the same bus. And you're busted up all over again, like in a bad way. And I asked the Lord, it was an anniversary of my first son's death that I finally said to the Lord, look, I need to know where my boys are, okay? I know what you say in the Bible where they go. They were both really good, strong believers in the Lord, but they had backslidden, and they did things that caused their deaths. It wasn't God that took them, but God welcomed them home. And I got down on my knees to pray. I remember it was May 2nd, and it was the 1-year anniversary of my second son's death, and I think the 4th or 5th year of my first son's death. And I said, Lord, I need to know where my sons are. You haven't shown me yet. And I heard nothing from God. I challenged the Lord. I said, Lord, you said if I knock on the door that you will answer it. In the scriptures it says, knock and the door shall be answered. I'm knocking on the door. Lord, it says in the scriptures, ask and you shall receive. I am looking to see where my sons are. I need to know where they are. I've lost 2. And I didn't hear an answer. Finally, I said, Lord, I am challenging you with your word. I want to see where my sons are. And then I got a vision. It was like I was looking through a camera at a 45-degree angle, downwards, 20 feet above. And I saw my 2 sons and my father. And they were carrying beautiful, gorgeous, cut beams of wood. Beams of wood. Huge, long beams of wood. And it was like looking through a very, very, very dirty window. I could make them out, I could see them, but the veil had been lifted partially. I was looking through and I saw my 2 sons and my father. And I said, Dad, what are you doing? And he's like, well, building houses. And I says, I want to build a house too with you guys, because we all had a family business and we worked together. And he says, you will. When the Lord calls you home, you'll be working with us. And I said, whose house are you building? Are you building your house? And he said, no, my house was built when I got here. We're building houses for other people that are going to be coming to heaven. And I got to see the Lord. I finally argued and I wrestled with the Lord where my sons were. I wanted to see. And he gave me that blessing, a huge blessing that I can never thank him enough for. To see my two sons, my father was a bonus, all working together, building houses. I still miss my boys. I raised them from the time they were born. I disciplined them in a godly manner. But when they became men, they became my friends. I still miss them. But the Lord showed me, the Lord gave me a huge blessing and showed me where they were. I argued with him. I wrestled with God to see. I demanded to see where my sons were. And he showed me. And I thank him for that. Not many people get that. I did. So as the years have gone by, there's been many nights cried to sleep. I've relied on God. I know where my sons are now. Where I stand now is I know that my sons are in heaven. I know that when the Lord calls me home, I'll see them again. Yeah, I will. I still miss them. But it's one of those things where they've passed forward, and when it's my turn to pass forward, we'll give each other a big hug and a kiss. I always taught them, never be too old to hug your old man, meaning dad, and give him a kiss on the cheek, because you never know when you might see me again. Someday I'll be gone. I didn't know that it would be the other way around. And I remember the last time I saw each of them, giving them a hug and a kiss on the cheek. So the only thing that I can share with you is that to love the Lord, believe and know where your child is at there in heaven, and you will see them again. Life is a vapor. It's a short vapor, and then you'll be reunited. It's not easy sometimes along the way. Sometimes I still cry. But I know in the end, we'll be with each other, you know. So, hope this video has helped you out. Yeah, if you want to text or call me, you can. Here's my name. There's my phone number. That's my email address. Believe in the Lord above, and He will never forsake you. I got a huge blessing by being able to see my sons in heaven. We're all part of a very small group who have lost children, and it's a very hard thing. Trust in the one above. You'll see your son or daughter again. Anyways, I'm Paul Gilson. Over and out.